"Are you okay?" "I will be," he promised. When the deputies arrived with Dr. Ken, they pushed everyone back and let the doctor look at the bodies. When they saw the sheriff, the younger deputy became emotional, and Mark noticed that he had to swallow hard several times. The older one didn't seem affected at all. Mark figured he was and just wasn't showing it because of his experience. Mark also found out that the good doctor was also the Wilson County medical examiner. The older deputy pulled a small notebook out of his pocket and started asking questions. Mark recognized him as the one who had resentfully babysat the trucks after his rolling shootout with the MZBs. He hadn't been very happy having to sit there until the crime scene photographer could come take pictures that hot day. Mark was the first one he questioned. Ralph had come over and was standing with Mark as he answered. Any time Mark began to volunteer anything, he felt the beefy paw of the big lawyer on his shoulder, telling him not to say anything more. Mark was slightly annoyed that Ralph wouldn't let him tell the deputy what he thought, but he shut up when told. He noticed the sourpuss deputy only asked for the bare facts and didn't follow up on anything Mark tried to say before Ralph stopped him. It seemed a little strange to Mark, but he figured the investigator had his reasons. When the deputy, whose nameplate said Barnes, was finished with his questions, he tersely thanked Mark, and while completely ignoring Ralph, and moved on to see who else had witnessed the attack. Mark turned to Ralph. "What was that about? Why wouldn't you let me say anything?" "Because I don't trust that son of a bitch," Ralph whispered. "Why not?" "I'll tell you later." The deputy asked several times if anyone had seen anything. Many people had heard the shots, but it appeared Mark was the only one to see Kurt and Susan actually shot. Rob started to tell the investigator about the wind and the probability that Mark was the primary target, but the deputy cut him off. "Rob, I know Kurt was your friend and that you helped him from time to time, but unless you directly witnessed something, just be quiet. I'm not interested in your theories. You need to let the sheriff's department run this investigation. Clear?" "Crystal," Rob replied shortly. Mark didn't know why Ralph didn't like Barnes, but it looked like there was no love lost between him and Rob either. In fact, Mark was beginning to dislike him too. The deputy trudged across the field to see the spot Billy had found. When he got there, he ran the horseman off with some wild waves of his arms and started looking the area over. In the meantime, the photographer had arrived, and Dr. Ken was telling him what pictures he wanted of the bodies. As the cameraman started to shoot the grisly shots, Dr. Ken walked over to the group who had been watching him. "Mark, I understand you saw what happened?" the doctor asked. Mark nodded his head. "Did Kurt have his hands out, up over his head?" "No, he had them out like this," Mark demonstrated again. "There was breeze and he was trying to cool off a little." "That explains it," Dr. Ken said. "Yeah, Rob noticed it too." Mark nodded in the ex-policeman's direction. The doctor looked at Rob like he couldn't quite place him, then his face indicated that he'd figured it out. "Of course, you're Kurt's cop friend from his neighborhood." Rob nodded. "I've never seen damage from a single gunshot like that," the doctor said. "Have you?" "No, Doc, I haven't, but then I was with SWAT, and we didn't do much in the way of investigation." "Well, hopefully I'll be able to tell more as I do the autopsies." The younger deputy walked up with 2 body bags. He and the doctor went back to the remains. They waited for the photographer to finish and then, as respectfully as possible, donned gloves and put the bodies into the bags. The photographer spoke briefly into his radio and then trudged over to the other side of the field. After Barnes ran them off, Billy and his boys had crossed the field, leading their horses. Billy and his foreman, Jose, came over to where Mark was standing with the other men. "Sorry to hear about the sheriff and Susan," Billy said. Even his eyes were on the moist side. "I didn't know either of them well, but Kirk was as good as they come, from what everyone has said. And that Susan, she had a lot of spunk." Mark thought that was a nice way to put it. "Yes," he agreed, "she sure did, and we didn't always agree on everything, but we are sure going to miss her. She was a valuable asset to us." He saw everyone nodding their heads. "And I don't know what we're going to do without Kurt," he continued. "He was the one the whole county looked to and depended on to get us through this mess. I hadn't known him that long, but I can truly say that he was my friend." There was a long silence. "What did you see over there?" Rob finally asked as he pointed to where the shots had come from. We were told by the guy on the radio not to get too close to where they were, so we didn't. We could see 2 sets of footprints coming in and going out, and the place where they lay down to shoot. Other than that, we really couldn't tell. Billy's voice changed. What's the deal with that asshole deputy? I know he just lost his boss, but there's no reason for him to act like that. We were at least 7 or 8 yards from the tracks, and he goes off on us for messing up his crime scene. It didn't even seem like he was sad. He's probably not, Greg said halfway under his breath. What do you mean? Mark asked. I mean, he probably figures someone just did him a big favor.